The guy that I wanted to highlight is the X factor for this guy needs to play good, and if he plays good, I think the Hawks have a really good chance. And now, obviously, I could say Trae Young, could say Capella, but I'm going with their second best playmaker, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Now, today, he had a really good game. He was shooting incredible. He shushed the crowd at the end after hitting a pretty crazy three. And the main reason why I think he's the X factor is the Hawks team is very, very dependent on Trae Young's playmaking. He averages over 9 assists. And if he's not playmaking, they don't really have anyone else that can, I would say, consistently create offense for them just off the dribble besides Bogdanovic. I think he would be the next guy up. And he averages 4 assists too, and that's the most or the second most on the team. So in my eyes, if he's not playmaking for them or he's having a really off shooting game, they're going to be in trouble because Trae Young is going to go against Thibault. He's going against Simmons, Tyrese Maxey, and a bunch of other guys. And if he's not having a good game and Bogdanovic can't play make, they really don't have any way of manufacturing points. Besides maybe Lou Will coming in there, but even then I wouldn't trust him too much. Although he did do pretty solid the first game, I will say. But bottom line here is if Bogdanovic is not able to really play make, they don't have that trusty second guy for Trae Young to relieve some of the pressure. And you're really asking a lot if you only have one guy that can do anything off the dribble or play make. And it's kind of the same thing with the Mavericks, funnily enough. And because obviously Trae and Doncic get compared a lot, but same thing, if Trae or Doncic isn't able to play make, they don't really have a number two who's super reliable. And that's where Bogdanovic comes in. And they need him desperately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that definitely a big reason that they won the first game was he came out hot, stayed hot, and then ended the game nearly with two big shots and then on the free throw line as well. So he was on his game. Mm-hmm. He got the win. Huge part. One thing that I think will be interesting with Bogdanovic as an X factor is a couple of times honestly a good amount of the game, he was matched up on Ben Simmons on defense.
Mm-hmm.
So and Ben Simmons a lot bigger than him and kind of could get to the hole. But I thought Bogdan handled himself well. Like he didn't really let Simmons kind of get in a groove with doing that too much. And I think if he can give them the spark they need in offense and playmaking and also keep Ben Simmons in check, that just I don't think it can be overstated how much of an impact it could have on the game. So I definitely agree with the playmaking and Bogdan on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm very curious how his defensive matchups fare for the rest of the series as well.
Yeah, that's the person I would have said too, funnily enough. Like, obviously, Trae Young is just an incredible offensive basketball player. Like, he can carry an entire offense. He kind of reminds me of like a mini James Harden, if you will, like a high volume, tough shot, 3-point shooter that shoots a lot off the dribble, really crafty in the lane, really good at drawing fouls. Obviously, he has the best floater game. I think we were talking about it. I think we all agreed he has the best floater game in the league right now. But they need somebody else in this series if they're going to win it. Like Trae Young, 35-12, he could probably do that another 2 times in this series. But I think that fourth game, they need somebody that's going to help them because I do think the Sixers have the kind of people that could give Trae Young trouble. They didn't give him that much trouble today until maybe the very end, but the game was kind of over. But I think they do have bodies they could throw at him and actually trouble him. And because of that, I think Bogdan Bogdanovic has to be very good, especially off the dribble, because the Hawks don't have a lot of guys that can truly get their own shot and make a lot of shots off the dribble. So I'm 100% with you. And I think if Bogdan Bogdanovic plays great, like I wouldn't be shocked if the Hawks shock everybody and beat the Sixers, who are already hobbled with Embiid playing with a light meniscus tear.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy you brought this up, Nolan, the defense, because Hunter was out game 1, and Hunter's a really good defender, so that puts even more pressure on him to, expend energy on that side. And I'm with you on the Simmons thing. There was a few times Simmons kind of got him, and Bogdanovic is tall and, more lean, and obviously Simmons is just, like 6'10", and he's pretty big, so he kind of has a few inches and definitely a good amount of weight on him, so that's kind of concerning, if if he's able to get going driving. But I don't think it was too prominent to the point where Bogdanovic was just getting cooked or anything. But yeah, he did get beat a few times, and then he got Simmons on the other end a couple times too. So, it's a game of matchups, and I think overall, like, he played a great game one, and they really need to have him do what he did last time. Maybe besides the turnovers near the end of the game when they had a little scare there, and the ball handling was not up to par with what you'd hope because they just looked like a really young team. But overall, I mean, phenomenal game, and if he can keep that up, I think Vish is kind of right there with. They have the means of beating the Sixers. They showed the blueprint already, and Bogdanovic is a huge part of that.
Yeah, and there is one thing I wanted to add, Nolan. I wanted to actually ask you this. So Cam Reddish could come back in this series, and we know Reddish is a super inconsistent offensive player. At least he shows glimpses of really being like a guy that could be like a top 20 player in the NBA. And then he also has games where it's like, wow, Cam Reddish is unplayable on the offensive end. He's shooting like Andre Roberson with his confidence and all. But the one thing he's done consistently since he's come in the NBA has been a very, very good defensive player. And you guys talked about how you're worried about Bogdanovic. Do you think that Reddish and Hunter, both of them being very good defensive players, I actually tend to think Reddish is a little better on the perimeter than Hunter. Do you think that could impact the Hawks in any way and enhance their opportunity to win this series if obviously Trey continues to play like this and Bogdanovic supports him as he's clearly the key?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think it's a matchup dependent. So I brought up Bogdanovic because Simmons was matched up on him. So I think Hunter in that regard could be a better matchup for Simmons. I think Reddish, although he's better with the perimeter, would still, I think, get a little bit bodied by Simmons, especially on like fast drives. So I don't know how much Reddish would help in that matchup, but I do just think because of how good, especially the first game, the Hawks offense looked, the more support they have on the defensive side of the ball will just give an enhancer to their odds of winning the series and winning games, and then just being more competitive with the Sixers, especially because of how dominant Joel Embiid can be on Capella, which I think was a matchup that he won today and will probably keep winning as the series goes on.
Yeah, I think more importantly for Reddish and Hunter would be guarding Tobias Harris. And Tobias Harris was playing really well, and I think the commentary crew brought this up. He didn't really get many touches. I think it was either the third or fourth, and he was kind of playing really well, and he's had a really underrated season. And, obviously Embiid should be getting the ball pretty much every time he's down the floor. I mean, he was killing Capella, but Tobias Harris played a really good game too. And I think that's where if you had Reddish or Hunter and you threw him on him, like, they would probably play him a little better than Herter did. I thought Herter did really good, honestly, today overall, but they're a little bigger than he is, and I think they would help on the defensive end more, and overall would just provide, just bigger guys, stronger guys that you are more confident in on the defensive side.
Agreed.
But, yeah, so that'll wrap up the Hawks. So Bogdan Bogdanovic, he's our X factor for the Hawks in this series, mainly due to his playmaking. And the man's got a 3-ball, which is just cash. So he needs to keep that up. But